I think my values or what I wanted out of life was all wrong. Like I valued material success and what others think of me so much more than my own well-being and happiness. And that caused so much hurt. So I guess the main thing would be just look after yourself, and stop caring so much about what everybody else thinks and what they think success is.
Hi, and welcome to the Entrepreneur Organization Business Podcast. I'm your host, Linh Podetti. Our mission here is to deep dive into the untold stories of entrepreneurs, unpacking the challenges that come with building a business. Today, we're joined by Luke Biermann, founder of Mechanical Steel Engineering and an active board member of EO Adelaide. Now, Luke's entrepreneurial journey is a testament to resilience and transformation. From starting out as a tradesman to leading a thriving business in the machinery spare parts industry, his path has been anything but ordinary. Now, in this episode, we'll uncover how the pressure to succeed and a need for external validation pushed Luke to the brink, leading to burnout, panic attacks, and significant physical and mental health challenges. He'll share how these struggles became a wake-up call, prompting him to re-evaluate his priorities and embrace a more fulfilling, balanced way of life. Luke's story is a powerful reminder that true strength lies in vulnerability, and seeking help is never a sign of weakness. His insights will inspire you to pursue success without sacrificing your well-being. So join me in welcoming Luke.
This episode is sponsored by Outsourcing Angel, your partner for skilled remote staff in LinkedIn marketing, lead generation, customer support, and more. As a social enterprise, we donate 10% of profits to charity and provide heart-centered remote staff who go the extra mile for your success. Visit outsourcingangel.com.
Welcome to the show, Luke. So great to have you here.
Thanks, Lynn. Awesome to be here.
Well, I've actually had the opportunity to have met you as well. We hung out at GLC, and looking forward to seeing you in many future events. Maybe we could even get started with, when did you join EO and a little bit about your business as well?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in EO for just over 2 years, maybe 2.5 years now. And as far as my business, we import, manufacture and repair spare parts for heavy machinery, mainly mechanical seals for industrial pumps.
And how did you get into that? And especially someone that's so into manufacturing, kind of traditional business. I'm surprised you're in EO.
Yeah. Well, look, in some ways, I felt like a bit of an outsider when I first joined because I feel like my industry is extremely antiquated as far as, business and stuff like that. I mean, how did I get into it? I just fell into an apprenticeship. Did my apprenticeship and thought, well, I can kind of do this better. And some of my mindset around needing to be successful, I think, drove me to starting the business. So.
And so, how did you hear about EO? What were you thinking about, being able to gain from joining EO?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot behind that. So just got invited by an old friend who we went to high school with. He's very successful, and I hadn't seen him for years. And he just seen a few of my posts on LinkedIn and stuff, and he thought, just go to this lunch. And I had no idea what it was, right? And I feel like the first 5 years of my business career was just drowning, not knowing what I'm doing. I came from a trade background, so not knowing what I'm doing, stressed to the max, all of this kind of stuff. And then here I am sitting in a room with successful business entrepreneurs, and I never even thought, to be honest, I had kind of this weird mindset where I thought, oh, if I need help, that's a weakness. You know what I mean? And once I started getting help and really learning from peers in business, that went away fairly quickly. And I realized that, this is kind of what I need to be able to take my business to the next level. So
Yeah. Well, let's take us back, in your earlier stages, because a lot of times we get into business because there's some sort of dream. There's some sort of kind of overcoming a bit of like, trauma or growing up being told that you can't achieve anything. And then we kind of decided, that's it. We're going to prove to someone that we're going to succeed. So I would love to hear a bit of your motivation and why you pursued entrepreneurship in the first place.
yeah, sure. So as this is going to get fairly deep fairly quickly, but it came from a deep feeling of not feeling worthy and I'm not feeling good enough, you know. So I have had a bit of a weird childhood where there wasn't much love in my household, as well as some, you know, childhood bullying and a few other things that happened. I had a deep uh, feeling that I'm still struggling with today about not being good enough, not being worthy. And I feel like the business, especially for the first 5 years, was just to prove to the world that I am good enough, that I am worthy. Um, yeah, and rather than internal motivations, it was just external motivations. So,
Mm. And you were talking about you even got into substance and like, take us back to some of the
yeah,
things you got
sure.
up to when you were
So
younger. And
yeah,
yeah.
so I think I'll start by basically, you know, I've got a trade background and I started a business and I really had no idea what I was doing. And instead of, you know, learning, I figured everything out on the fly, right? And I had such a drive and a need for success because I thought success business wise would make me happy. But that led to, let's say, 2 or 3 years in, I was working, you know, 70, 80 hours a week. My daughter got born. I was back at work the next day. My wife felt extremely alone at home. I was getting headaches and migraines constantly. I was drinking too much. I was unhealthy. And I came to the realization that, you know, the motivation behind starting the business was basically to, first of all, to prove that I'm worthy, but second of all, to build a life for my family, a great life for my family. But I came to the realization fairly quickly that it was actually destroying my life and destroying my relationship with my wife. And also, I was missing out on some of the best parts of my kids' childhoods. So,
Mm. Yeah. And so what did you do differently back then in terms like were you not wanting to grow a team and trying to do everything yourself that kept you there? Like
yeah,
what was sabotaging your success or being able to build a business with freedom?
yeah, I was the bottleneck in every sense of the word. And like, you know, at that point, I think I had 5 or 6 staff maybe. But they didn't have any autonomy. And basically, I had oversight over every aspect of the business, right? So, because I had the classic mentality that a lot of business owners have that nobody else is going to do anything as good as me. And I need to make sure everything's okay. And that just led to burnout, consistent burnout. Um, so, yeah, basically, trying to do everything myself was the biggest issue.
Mm. And when you mentioned burnout, what was burnout for you? Because I've heard lots of different meanings of burnouts, and
Yeah.
sometimes burnout sounds like just a stress, but sometimes burnout to someone is like they're paralyzed and they couldn't move. I would love to hear what was your version of burnout.
Mine was fairly close to the latter. So, there was about a 2 year period there where I was getting constant migraines. And I actually went through a bunch of medical tests like MRIs, sleep tests, ear, nose, and throat tests, all that kind of stuff. Because I was just suffering from migraines, and I thought there was a medical condition going on. Um, but and then a couple of years in, I was at work one day and I was dealing with an issue with a staff member, not dealing it with it very well because I didn't know what I was doing back then. And all of a sudden, I just felt this rush of adrenaline come over me, right? So I just couldn't talk anymore, and I instinctively just walked to my car. I had a chat to my wife about this last night, actually. I was driving home and I called her on the drive home, basically telling her I couldn't breathe. I don't know what's going on. I don't think I should be driving. I ended up driving home. And when I got home, I just collapsed on the couch, started shaking uncontrollably, broke out in a full body rash. Um, yeah, and it was just a huge wake up call that I actually think this is related to stress. Now, during the whole trying to figure out what was causing the headaches, I actually went to a doctor and he goes, "Look, I think this is stress, and it's pretty clear that it is stress." And I laughed him off, and I basically said to him, "What are you calling me weak? What are you talking about? You know, stress can't do this to a person." So I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing until my body basically said, no more, this is it. So, and then I just
Mm.
started having panic attacks. And it was that was the eye opener to me that I'd actually instead of building a good life for myself, I'd actually trap myself into being miserable. And we hadn't even started seeing kind of the benefits of it yet. So it was just a real miserable cycle at that point.
Yeah. Was there any parts of growing up that influenced the way you work? Like, were your parents working so hard? Was it just normal to work hard? Because I feel like you were shocked when the doctor said that's called stress. It felt like you couldn't even pick it up that this is what
Yeah.
stress looks like.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I could dive into there. I laughed when I was having a chat with somebody the other day because my dad was a workaholic, right? And my mum had substance abuse issues. And I
Mm.
basically, I always thought I was nothing like them. And I ended up getting hit with both, right? So um, also I just think I grew up in a circle of people, both within and my family and within my school environment, where any issues with mental health or not being able to handle a situation were perceived as weak. And I think that exacerbated it for me because when I started having the panic attacks initially, I just it exacerbated the thoughts of not being worthy because now I thought I was weak as well, right?
Mm.
And I've been on a basically, I mean, this was all about 4 years ago, and since then I've just been on a journey of trying to transform my business so it serves me, and also concentrate on my mental health. And what that looks like is daily meditation, sobriety, fitness, and not putting all my eggs in the basket of, oh, I'll be happy when the business turns over $10 million. I'll be happy, when I'm rich, when I have a Rolex. Whereas kind of every materialistic goal that I've hit, it hasn't fixed any of my mental issues. So I think success and happiness for me personally are two very different aspects of my life. And I clumped them together at my own peril, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you were married at the time, and did your wife notice anything at first and t try to stop you from working too hard? Because I know I have conversations like that with my husband. I'm like, you're working too hard. You should focus on this. Did anyone else around you notice except you?
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, in preparation for this interview today, I actually had a chat to my wife Jess last night to kind of get her idea on, her thoughts about back then, and it actually brought her to tears. It was such a hard time, right? Because we just had our two daughters, and so she was home with the kids, and I was always at work because I thought that that's where I needed to be at the time. And again, in the early days, the business wasn't even making money. So, and then there was the whole panic attacks and all the migraine stuff. So yeah, at the time, I think we were both so busy and so focused that it was just chaos and we didn't know what was going on. But reflecting on it, it was actually a really tough testing time in our life. So
Mm. So she was just so busy running the family, and you're busy weren't running your business.
yeah,
Were you just caught up into two areas you didn't, she wasn't trying to stop you from working either. Is that what you were saying?
looking back, she probably was. But I don't think there was any stopping me. I think the motivation was so deep that there was just, yeah, no stopping me whatsoever.
Mm, okay.
Now, I look back at that and I'm actually quite thankful because I'm really happy with my life at the moment, right? So, I'm very conscious about walking my kids to school. I'm very conscious about, being in touch with my emotions and feeling the early signs of burnout, right? So,
Mm.
um, there's a lot to be thankful for, but looking back, it was a very, very tough period of my life.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you were telling yourself that it's weak to ask for help, or it's weak that I can't handle stress. So if you were to talk to yourself at that age again, what would you actually want to say to Luke back then?
Just stop thinking like that. I mean, is it weak to go to the hospital with if you have a broken leg? No. If you've got mental issues, you've got to deal with those mental issues. And I guess it was just a. I think my values or what I wanted out of life was all wrong. Like I valued material success and what others think of me so much more than my own well-being and happiness. And that caused so much hurt. So I guess the main thing would be just look after yourself, and stop caring so much about what everybody else thinks and what they think success is.
Mm. So when you had the physical symptoms, you
Mm.
obviously you had to stop. You had to stop doing whatever you're doing. But
Yeah.
then what did you start doing? Like, as in, how did you seek help? What was the next few steps to
Yeah.
recover from that?
So I went to the doctor that I was seeing at the time about the migraines, and there was basically a bit of relief in a lot of ways because we were just exhausted, right? So there was a bit of relief about, okay, we've actually got something here because nothing else had kind of materialized, and there was nothing else we could grab on and be like, this is the cause of the migraines. So it was a bit of relief, and straight away, it was that bad that I just instantly went on medication, which again, there was such a internal battle for me, and I was very secretive about it, which obviously I'm not today. Um, then basically from then, rather than focusing on business growth, business growth, business growth at all cost, it was more lifestyle design and kind of working on, I guess, concentrating on de-stressing, being happy, and meaning rather than just success, success, success.
Mm.
Um,
And who helped you? Was it books or a coach? Because I personally had to work with like my life coach for years, and dive deep into the trauma, the forgiveness that I need to make to my parents. Like, what were the people or the things that helped you to overcome it? I'm sure you couldn't have done it all on your own, figure it all
yeah,
out.
yeah. Very similar to what you were saying. A psychologist. I'm very, very big on counseling. I still see one every month. I think it's fantastic. Also, meditation. Meditation's been a huge one for me. It's just so much of my stress came from self-talk about not being good enough, right? So to be able to practice mindfulness and meditation and realize that these are just thought loops caused by previous trauma, and you can actually just notice them and move on was such a big thing for me. But yeah, books, um, psychologists, all that kind of stuff. And just also EO played a huge part, right? Meeting other people. I remember one of the first people I met in EO, and I described this story about the medication, and there was a deep shame in my voice when I was telling it. And this other person from EO, hugely successful person that I looked up to at the time, goes, I went through exactly the same thing. And they described their story, and it was exactly the same. And now I tell people about it, and they go, "Oh, thanks for telling me about this. I thought I was alone." So
Mm. Do you think you would have found EO if you didn't go through what you went through? Because knowing someone who's in like a manufacturing industry or some sort of blue collar worker industry, they're more narrow-minded, right? They're not as open to
yeah,
reading, learning, or whatever. And I think because you're already seeking, you were open to EO more, right?
yeah, I think so. I think because of the level of stress the business was putting me under, it was just so obvious that I needed a way out. I needed to learn how to run the business without it being so reliant on me. And I just basically this seemed like the perfect opportunity. And then, but EO's turned into so much more for me, right? It's turned into building relationships, building confidence, stuff like that. So.
Mm-mm. And so you did work on your life to help you to feel better. How about your business? Like, you mentioned earlier on you were, I guess, not giving autonomy to your staff. You didn't trust them. You were monitoring. What had to shift for you to grow your business, to have the actual business freedom?
Yeah, yeah, it was basically all my mindset. And also I got some advisors through EO, through recommendations of EO, and through that I've put in place a leadership team, and we're doing all the EOS stuff with the weekly leadership team meetings, the daily huddle. Whereas before, I think it was just me running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and nobody
Mm.
actually knew what was going on. Also, there was a huge discomfort with delegation. And I met a guy in EO Adelaide who basically specialized in delegation. And he sat down with me and went over basically methods and put it in place. And then I started doing it and realizing how much freedom. And now we're at the point where I can like I can just go away for a week now. And in the early days of the business, that was unheard of. Like I couldn't have a day off. So yeah, mainly through putting a leadership team in place and getting better at communication.
So what has success, the meaning of success mean for you now? Like early on, I'm pretty sure it's like make as much money as possible and in the fastest time. I'm just guessing there, but
That's
what is it
true.
before? What is it now?
Yeah, yeah, cool. So success for me is my kids knowing that I love them unconditionally. It's having enough time to spend with my family. It's being comfortable in my own skin. It's not being burnt out, right?
Mm,
Whereas you're absolutely right. I mean, in the early days of the business, my only metric for success was wealth, right?
mm.
Wealth, wealth, wealth. And then it just took me to going to a really dark place to kind of realizing this is not what I want anymore.
Yeah. And did that wealth goal move? Every time you hit it, how did it feel? And then
Yeah.
how quickly did you increase it? Were you one of those really bold guys that were like doubling up and trying to,
Yeah.
achieve big audacious goals often?
It was, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was, I need to build a company that expands throughout the world because then people will know that I'm worthy. That was it, yeah. So I wanted to build a company that basically took over the world in our industry. And just looking back, it seems so ridiculous that's what I thought I needed.
Mm.
Um,
And how did it feel when when you thought that by hitting the financial goal, what did you imagine it should feel, and how did you actually feel?
yeah. I felt nothing. I mean, so one of my this is an interesting story that I think about a long time, like, a lot of the time. So I had a goal, right? Once I turn over this point of revenue, I'm going to buy myself a Rolex because that'll make me happy, and then I'll be successful. Now I've hit that point now, right? I've actually taken over that point. But I refuse to buy a Rolex because I think the part of me that wants to buy that Rolex is the part of me that's obsessed with materialism, right? I don't want to feed that, and I don't think it'll make me happy in any way, shape, or form. I bought nice watches in the past, and I won't wear them because they actually kind of feel icky to me now. So
Yeah, I get it. I wouldn't buy myself one. My husband forced it on me, so he bought me one, and
yeah,
I definitely don't want to buy the second one because I'm like, it's just going to create more dilemma. Like, which one should I
yeah,
wear? So I'll just keep
yeah.
one.
But also, I don't have a problem with it. If that's something people are passionate about and it gives them happiness, absolutely go for it. But for me, I feel that the only point I would be is so that others know that I'm successful.
Mm. So how did you work on not caring about other people's judgment and doing it for other people? What are some steps that you've taken or some advice you could give to someone that, you can't help to kind of still care?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question. And I guess I'm still on that journey. What advice would I give to people? I guess maybe look at the evidence where that kind of thinking has got you and at the end of the day, what do you want out of life? Like realistically, I think if your only motivations or goals in life is to make other people like you, I think you're actually in for a lot of trouble. Like you're never going to make everybody happy. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And I think, yeah, it's what do they say? The comparison is a thief of joy or something
comparison
like
is the thief of joy,
that.
100%. And my life was all comparison and no joy. So
Yeah, yeah. And so you were going through mental health at the time, and I know reading statistics, it's pretty sad that majority of the suicide rates were more men and
yeah.
also around in the 40s. Like, what did you discover? Why are men more inclined to to experience mental health?
Well, that's a very big question. I think I can speak from my own experience where I think any discussion around mental health for me was just like I said previously, perceived as weakness. I was very secretive around the fact that I was having issues. I have only recently, in the last 6 months, actually publicly spoken about the fact that I've taken antidepressants. Um, yeah, I think a lot of it's because rather than being able to solve the issue, there's such a stigma around men's mental health, and I think a lot of them just keep it in, and it's too much for somebody to deal with, to be honest.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely I think one of the key strategy is talking it out, and most men don't like to talk.
Yeah,
But I
and
feel like you've also went to the next level. You started a podcast, and now you're doing a lot of conversations. Tell us a little bit about why have you decided to pursue, a kind of a new path, getting
yeah,
out.
well, yeah, it's funny with my podcast. Initially, I started it because I wanted to talk about entrepreneurship and stuff like that. But it every conversation just leads into mental health because that's something I'm so passionate about. So the podcast for me is another attempt at not putting all my eggs in one basket, right? So for so long, all my self-worth was wrapped up in my life as an entrepreneur, right? So
Mm.
now, I'm very passionate about endurance sports as well. I want multiple baskets. So if anything goes wrong within that business basket, I don't think, oh, my life's over. I'm a failure, right? So let's say if something happens, which it has in the past, and the business finds itself in extreme amounts of debt or something like that, I've missed something. Then I'm still happy because I'm running a marathon. That's something that I'm passionate about, right? I've got a creative outlet, my podcast. So it's all about balance for me, and I say the word balance to some EOers, and they cringe actually because so focused on business building. I mean, you spoke about you being passionate. Can I kind of ask you what that
Yeah,
means to you?
definitely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's quite normal for a woman to have to feel like they need to balance family and work because that's just the way we've always had to be. And so they're right. It is rare for a guy to care more about that. So I'm curious, how did they react to you? Are they like cringy or are they curious with the fact that you care about work-life balance?
Yeah, I get a lot of blank stares, and it's the same with it's the same, like even with in EO circles, kind of the mental health stuff. I have actually been heard it described as weak, which
Mm.
is very interesting, but I think it's just more evidence of kind of the stigma around men's mental health. But as far as kind of the balance and stuff, I think it kind of comes down to what you want out of life, I guess. And like I said, I say to some people, oh, I value balance more, and I want to be happy and not stressed, and live a fulfilling life. And I have got the response previously, well, you're never going to build a business that's going to take over the world. Then I go, well, that's not actually what I want out of life anymore. So I have been
Yeah.
struggling to kind of figure out how to balance that with EO, because EO is a lot about just business growth at any cost. But then I meet people like you and a few of my other friends in EO who are kind of on the same page as me. So
Yeah, I think it's all about there's all sorts of people in any community and just finding the
yeah,
people that you're aligned with, but then you still can learn a lot about business with business people, and you just do you, right?
yeah,
You get knowledge from everyone else. But I'm so proud of you that you've really advocating for this because that's my passion. I'm like, hey, it's not all about the money. Trust me. And look,
yeah,
I also just tell people like you can still have your business goal and financial goal as long as you got everything else settled. Like if you
yeah.
have a complaining partner and your kids are complaining they never see you, and you still want that kind of aggressive business goal, then no, maybe you should reduce that thing. But if you're doing everything else and you can still achieve that financial goal, then good on you.
Yeah,
Give us
well,
the secret
that's
sauce. Yeah.
very well said. And I still want to scale my business, and I still am scaling my business, but it will not come at the cost of my relationship with my wife and kids. It will not come at the cost of my mental health, basically. But yeah, I'm still very passionate about business, and I'm very passionate about scaling business. It just forces me to do things to hire better people, right? It forces me to be a better communicator and delegate more. So
Yes, that's right. We're limited time. It's all about putting the right rocks into the jar. So, as you're trying to do all of this, what would you wish your family or others remember you as, or remember you for?
I want, if it's my wife and kids, I want them to remember me as somebody that gave them unconditional love.
Mm.
And that's it.
Yeah. And if it was the world, it was someone in EO and others, what do you want us to remember you for?
Same thing. Somebody that was a good family man, but also somebody that spoke honestly. Somebody with something I've been focusing on lately is kind of because I did judge myself on how I was traveling materialistically. I think somebody that's virtuous, and what I mean by that is ethical and honest. So, what about you? Has
Beautiful
anybody
said.
turned this question around with you?
I'll have to be on your show to share with you all my answers.
Look forward to it.
This podcast is about you, Luke. So thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your wisdom with us. I would love for all the men to hear this message because I too want them to realize that it's all money is just one side of life, and there's all the other areas as well. So thank you, Luke, for your time today.
No worries. Thanks, Lynn. My podcast is called the Hard Stuff Podcast. Check it out. Really appreciate you having me on. Thanks, Lynn.
Yes, and I look forward to being on your show. Bye.
Fantastic. Bye.